Hey guys, Kirk here, and thank you for joining me on a new video on the channel. In this video we are going to be looking at adding foam to our river shader. We're going to do this in the way of we're going to build the logic for our foam, and then we're going to give ourselves the ability to paint on our river mesh, if you like, with Vertex painting, and we can just simply paint on the foam where and if we need it. Just gives us that little bit of extra control over where we want our foam placing. Before we get started, if you have not subscribed or liked the videos, then please do so. It does go a long way in giving me a kick up the bum to do these videos, and I'd like to thank everyone who has subscribed lately. There must be some good videos on my channel. Also join the Discord. There's plenty of information on there, and in the future, I say the future, next couple of weeks, I'm going to start adding the textures that I use, like for the foam and the normals. I'm going to start adding them onto a page on the Discord. So if you want these kind of textures, then jump on our Discord, say hello, and you can download the textures from there. And you can also get a load of help there with other things in Unreal Engine. So yeah, let's get a move on. I'm going to jump in our master material for our river shader, and we're just going to add the foam up here and then blend it with our river colours right there. First things first, we need a texture. If I come to my masks folder, water masks, I'm going to use this ocean foam texture. Like I say, this will be available in the Discord either today or later this week, I'm not sure. If you want to use it, then jump on our Discord and download it from there. Okay, so I'm going to right click here. I'm using current texture. I'm going to right click here and start preview, and you'll see that this texture is showing up here. As you can see, there's red, greens and blues there. There's a different kind of texture in each channel. You guys should know that by now. I'm going to drag off the UVs and get a panel node. We're going to make it so it's a scrolling texture. And to scroll with this panel node, you just come to the speed Y axis here. I'm going to put a -0.2 in there. Just give it a slow scroll. That was a mouthful. As you can see now, our texture's scrolling. I'm going to stop previewing this actually. I'm going to duplicate this like so, and then I am going to multiply these two together. The multiplies might not be good for our foam, but we'll tell in due course. I'm going to right click on the multiply node, start previewing the node, and you'll see there we're getting these blacks and whites. They scroll at the same pace. If I change this to a -0.4, one will go a little bit quicker than the other. Like so, there, it matched up. So we need some UVs. So I'm going to hold U on the keyboard and left click, get a texture coordinate node. I'm going to hold M on the keyboard and left click, get a multiply node. I'm going to want to control these textures individually on each X and Y axes. To do that, we're going to right click and get an append vector. You can see here in the math operations, get this append vector, drag it into the multiply. If I hold S on the keyboard, get a scalar parameter, I'm going to put foam UV X. X is always the top one. If I duplicate this, we're going to want one for the Y. So I'll change that X to a Y. I'm going to default both of these to 1. We'll drag them in these append vectors. You could also just forget the append vector and just use one scalar parameter in there, just to affect both X and Y at the same time. But for foam, I'm going to want control over my X and Y individually. Okay, so if I throw this into our coordinates, you'll see nothing will change because our panel node is set to a 1x1 like our texture coordinates for our UVs. We're going to want to make this panel node coordinate a little bit bigger, so I'm going to hold M and get a multiply node. Otherwise the textures will just keep repeating. If we watch this texture now, you'll see it repeats there. If we watch it again, it'll repeat itself and the illusion's gone. There it is. So if we get this multiply node and maybe 1.4 in there, we'll just drag off our coordinates and then into that coordinate of the panel node. And now this texture is a little bit smaller than the other one. So now we should hardly ever see this repetition of this scrolling texture. Like so. Well, that is okay as it stands there. I think I'll do another one, guys. I'm going to add a third one. So I'm going to duplicate these. I'll duplicate the multiply node with it as well, but for this I'm going to make it a 1.6. I'll just drag off there to our multiply node. I'm going to add these two together. So if I hold A on the keyboard and left click, just add these. You've got to control the brightness kind of in a way with these multiplies and adds. If I add another multiply, it'll just make it a lot darker. If I right click this now and start previewing, it'll add the whites together. And as you can see now, we're getting more whites than blacks, but that's completely fine. We're going to build a bit of a mask up to sort this out. That is kind of like it's just the same. That's because it is. Okay, so this panel node is minus 0.4. This panel node is minus 0.2. And obviously we're going to put this at minus 0.7, make it a little bit quicker. And now we're getting a bit of variation. It's a little bit quick, so we're going to want to control the speed for it all. So we're going to right click, get a time node in here, hold M again, get a multiply node, left click, hold S and left click, get a scalar parameter in here. We'll put foam speed. So just put a default value of 1 in there. Drag this into here, and we're going to want to put this time node into the time slot of our panel node, and this will let us control the time, the speed at which our panel nodes are panning the texture. As you can see, nothing's changed, but if I put this like a 0.3, we completely slowed that down, so 0.6, and that seems okay like that. The scrolling vertically, well, I'm happy with that. I want a bit more variety in there. So to combat this, we could come in here and say this panel node, if we put 0.0006, one of our textures are going to move slightly to the left or right, wait there, 0.06. And one of them now, it looks like the bottom one is moving slightly to the left. I'll come in this one and put minus 0.06. This will then divert to the other direction. Just creating that little bit more variation in there, which is what I'm looking for, but up to now, that looks okay. Obviously that top layer is really bright. So let's control this intensity. Let's drag off here and get a multiply node. And here we can now, if I right click this, start previewing this. We've multiplied our brightness. If I get this and put 5, you'll see our brightness is really bright. 0.1, we go really dark. Like so if I put a 1.4, we're getting a nice amount of brightness there. Don't know, I may multiply. Let's try and multiply in here. So I'm going to duplicate that multiply node. Put that in there. See what happens here now. That's really dark, isn't it? I may add these two together for our brightness. Throw that in there. There you go. Now our top layer is the black side of things. They're all black and white, but we're getting more from the blacks, and that's kind of what I'm looking for here. It's probably a little bit quick. I'm going to delete that multiply. No, we don't need that. I'm going to leave the setup like this, I think. I'm going to hold S on the keyboard, left click, get a scalar parameter. Foam brightness. Like so, throw that in there. You'll see it goes completely black. If I put a 5 in here, 1.2, that'll do. That's completely fine. So now we've got some scrolling foam textures to try and imitate some sort of foam going on here. It'll make more sense shortly. I want to now add a little bit of variation. If we come to our content drawer, if we click on the All tab of our engine itself and just type in here noise, and we're going to want to get a noise texture. This one looks good. We're all 1K. We're all false wraps and masks. Okay, so that's wraps, PNG. Okay, so we're going to use this noise too. It's up to you what you want to use. You can use that noise 6 looks okay. No, that's more like a roughness texture. That. Doesn't really matter which one you use, to be all fair. So I'm going to use the noise 2 texture. I'm going to use this texture to kind of set up a bit of a mask to get a bit more variation in there, which you'll see shortly. Let's hold L on the keyboard and get a lerp node in here. Then I'm going to hold 1 on the keyboard and left click and get a constant 1 vector. Just put that in the A, put our multiply in the B, and we'll drag off this RGB into the alpha, like so. If we start to preview this, there we go, that's what I'm looking for. There's a lot more variation in there now. Like if I start to preview this, you'll see there is variation there, but it's not great. But if I come in here now and start previewing this, there's a lot more variation in there. And this texture is doing nothing, it's just still. If I open this up, it's just got high whites and a bit of grayscale and some spots of black. And it's just adding a bit more darkness in there, so our foam looks a little bit more realistic, if you like. Of course, if you want to as well, you could bring in a panner node. Start panning this if you want, and now the blacks will start panning over. Zero that out, and you can see there at minus 0.7. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put minus 0.1, so it's dead slow. I may even go to 0.01, so there's a little incline upwards from this mask. And now we're getting some variation. That speed's a little bit high. I'm going to put 0.3 in here, 0.2. There you go. Yeah, happy with that. What I want to do now is blend this with our colour. So to do this, we're just going to simply add them two together. We'll get the add node, get our lerp into the add node, and this lerp where we blended two colours together based off our opacity mask, depth mask, sorry, just add that into there and plug this into that pin. This pin here, guys, is for my base colour, just in case you was wondering. If I hit apply and come check our scene out, just give a moment for our shaders to compile. Okay, now our shaders have compiled and I've done an auto save. As you can see now, we're getting some foam on our mesh, which looks okay actually from the offset. Does look okay. I feel like I'm missing something. We just need to create, just change our UVs around a little bit, but we'll do that shortly. What I want to do is to enable us to vertex paint this foam onto our mesh. So we'll right click, stop previewing node, we'll drag all this back a little bit. I'm going to press M on the keyboard and left click, get a multiplier node in. We'll drag that into the add. If I right click and just type vertex, vertex, you'll see we get a constant vertex color. This information node, what this is going to do, it's going to enable us to paint on a certain channel of our vertex painting. So for this, we're not using it anywhere else in the shader, so I'm just going to use the red channel. And like I say, this will enable us to paint on a certain onto our mesh using that channel, which we'll do shortly. If I hit apply on here now, this is pretty much the logic setup, the logic side of things. I put foam in here. And now we've got our logic set up for the foam. We've got some nice foam there actually. I'm quite impressed with how that's turned out on there. Obviously it's all over the place a little bit, but it doesn't look too bad, in all honesty. I'm going to open our material instance now. Come to build worlds, water shader, river, material instance. Just drag this off to one side. Just want to sort these UVs out. Wait there. Our shaders need to catch up a bit. So we've got our foam brightness here. If I increase this, you'll see our foam's getting brighter. There you go, look. It's a bit strange. Well, we'll sort that out shortly. Might be the UVs that. So let's have a look. So our UVs are already set up. This is from when I did it previously. So you can increase the speed here, as you can see. Decrease the speed. It's relatively slow. So 0.2 looks okay for that. Let's increase this a bit more. Decrease this. The brightness is too much. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 seems alright. Okay, so as you can see here, that's worked out pretty well. Quite happy with that. But like I say, we've created it so we can do vertex. Let's just save this. We can do vertex painting. So we can paint our foam onto where we want it. Using this method, using the vertex painter, it's quite buggy still in Unreal Engine 5, which I've found. To get there, you just come to your select mode at the top and choose mesh paint. We choose this. What you also need, I'll go through this real quick. When mesh painting, the actual mesh needs to have some geometry. So if I find our mesh here, it should be bottom. So I've got mine here, which is this one. If I come to the lit, where it says lit at the top, click on that and choose wireframe. You'll see this orange frame here, this orange wireframe, among all the others, I know. But this orange wireframe is our river mesh. And basically, the higher geometry, the more detail you get. But for this kind of river shader, you don't really need masses of vertices on your mesh. But for the sakes of this tutorial, we'll leave it like this. This is fine. I will be doing an in-depth tutorial on mesh painting. We'll create the actual shader itself. And then what that means is we could change our textures to, let's change that back, change our different textures and just paint on what we want. But this is not a mesh paint mode tutorial. I'm just using it for now. If I hit paint, and you'll see we get this green ring here. This is just basically where we're painting. In our shader, you'll see in the vertex color, we're using the red channel. If we come back in here, you'll see we've got channels here, red, green and blue. if we uncheck green and blue, now we're painting in the red channel. So if I click on it and just start painting away, you'll see nothing happens. That's because I'm wondering why this ain't painting. There we go. And you can see now I can paint our foam onto here nice and easily. Like so. We'll come round there and just paint it all on. Like so. But what we can do with this now is we can erase where our foam is. If I make this brush a little bit smaller, that's alright. Increase the strength. You'll see here we have a paint colour and erase colour. You can simply hit the X button on your keyboard and it swaps them around. So if the black is on top, you're erasing. Look, I can erase this foam now. Like so. Just get all that erased there. And if I hit X again, the white will go on top. And then I can start painting our foam back in. It's that easy, Vertex painting. You'll see there's dots within the circle. That's the actual vertices of the mesh, which are just shown in the wireframe mode. The more of them dots you get in your circle, the more detail you'll get. But because it's just foam on this mesh, we don't really need it to be high in vertices. So I've painted on some foam. We don't want foam all the way everywhere, so I'm going to hit X and erase. Just going to erase some of this here. Actually, at the bottom here, I'm going to want quite a bit of thinking ahead here, where this orange line meets this plane. This is going to be our transition zone. So there's going to be loads of foam there, I think. Not loads, but there's going to be a nice amount of foam. I'm going to put some foam across the bottom here. Like so. Don't forget we can increase our foam brightness a little bit more. You can see what we're doing. We can just touch in here with it. Oh no, we're still painting it. We just touch in here and start erasing some of this. Vertices. Like so. And what I want to do is to paint here. Get some foam coming from our rock and down the edges. Get rid of some of this here. We don't need all that. And you can just come on and click it a little bit. It just dulls down the foam as well. I'll come here and just reduces it. I can still keep all this foam here. It's coming from the rock. I can also reduce it a bit because it's a little bit bright there. You can see the power here straight away. You can just remove this foam from here. Just go straight up there, removing that foam. I'm going to want some here actually, around the edges. So yeah, as you can see, let's touch it up a little bit there. Get rid of some of that. As you can see now, we can just apply our foam wherever we want on the mesh. If I come up here now, let's see if we're getting some here. We don't really want this here. We don't really want any there. We do want some up the edge though here. Some here. Don't forget you can just click it, single click it, and it'll just reduce the amount of foam showing on there. Like so. If you hold it down, it completely gets rid of it. If you just click, it just reduces the amount of foam you get. There. So yeah. And that there, guys, is how to apply foam to a river shader using mesh painting. Let's get rid of that a bit. So. We can reduce some of this here. Get rid of some of this. So we want to keep it here actually, because this is where our waterfall is going to be. I say waterfall, it's not a waterfall, it's just a bit of a fall over for the water. So waterfall, if you like. Get rid of some of this here, wait there. Some of this here. And yeah, and that is pretty much it. Let's paint some on the edge here. On this edge. Just don't want it completely covering it all. Dim these down a little bit. And there you go. And that's it, guys. We've added our foam, and now we can mesh paint anywhere on the mesh that we want. If I come out of that mode, you'll see now we can come back to our instance, start changing these up a little bit. Now we're getting foam happening. Where we painted it, that's a bit smaller. We can reduce our intensity as well. So, okay. Even a bit more actually. Just want it to be a nice subtle foam. Don't want it to be overkill. Put a 4 in there. A bit brighter. So yeah, that should be it for this now. There's going to be more tutorials on the way. I've got quite a lot of plans for this this channel on YouTube. So if you're a fan of the work I'm doing and you're learning quite a bit, then consider subscribing and liking the videos. Really, like I say, it goes a long way with what I'm doing. And come in Discord and have a chat. And I'll see you in the next video. See you later.